The fluorescent lights in Theo Valentini's executive suite hummed with a frequency that matched the persistent ache behind my eyes. I'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for the past 20 minutes, the numbers blurring together as exhaustion threatened to pull me under. 2 years. 2 years of 12-hour days, of perfecting the art of invisibility, of existing in the peripheral vision of the most dangerous man in Chicago. I pressed my fingers against my temples, trying to massage away the tension that had taken up permanent residence there. The clock on my computer screen read 9:47 p.m. Another late night. Another evening sacrificed to the empire of organized crime that operated under the guise of Valentini Industries. Miss Morgan. The voice came from the doorway, sharp and impatient. Marco Ricci, Theo's right-hand man, stood there with his perpetual scowl. Mr. Valentini needs the quarterly reports on his desk by morning. All of them. I swallowed the exhaustion that threatened to manifest as tears. Of course, I'll have them ready. He nodded once and disappeared, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble floor. The sound faded, leaving me alone with the hum of the lights and the weight of impossibility. There were 17 quarterly reports. Each one required at least an hour of compilation and review. The math was simple and cruel. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother's nurse in Ohio. The message was brief, clinical. Treatment went well today. She's asking about you. Guilt twisted in my chest, sharp and familiar. I'd promised to visit last month, but overtime had eaten away at my plans. The overtime I needed to pay for her treatment. The cycle was vicious and inescapable. I opened my bottom desk drawer and retrieved the energy drink I'd been saving for emergencies. This qualified. As I cracked it open, I caught my reflection in the darkened window behind my desk. 26 years old and I looked 40, with dark circles under my eyes and a permanent tension in my jaw. But the salary was triple what I could make anywhere else. The benefits were extraordinary, and I'd learned not to ask questions about why a construction and import company needed this level of financial security, or why armed men occasionally visited the executive floor, or why certain meetings resulted in hushed phone calls in Italian and men leaving with grim expressions. I knew what Theo Valentini was. Everyone in Chicago knew, even if they pretended not to. The newspapers called him a prominent businessman and civic leader. The streets called him something else entirely. But he paid his bills on time and never bounced a check, which was more than I could say for most legitimate employers I'd worked for. The first report took 43 minutes. My fingers flew across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, pulling data from multiple sources, cross-referencing numbers, highlighting discrepancies that Theo would want addressed. I'd learned his preferences through trial and error, through terse corrections, and the occasional grunt of approval that I'd learned to interpret as praise. At 11:15 p.m., I heard the elevator chime. My heart rate kicked up automatically, a Pavlovian response I'd never been able to control. Theo rarely left before midnight, but his arrivals and departures had a way of charging the atmosphere, making every molecule of air feel suddenly electric. I kept my eyes on my screen, willing myself invisible as his footsteps approached. He would walk past my desk, as he always did, perhaps with a curt nod if he was feeling particularly communicative. He would enter his office, close the door, and I would continue to not exist in his world. Except tonight, the footsteps stopped. I looked up slowly, my breath catching despite my best efforts at professional composure. Theo Valentini stood 3 feet from my desk, his dark suit immaculate despite the late hour, his tie loosened just enough to reveal the strong column of his throat. At 34, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who'd never heard the word no, and meant it. His eyes, storm gray and penetrating, swept over me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. I'd been on the receiving end of those eyes exactly 3 times in 2 years. During my interview, during my 6-month review, and during my 1-year review. Each time, I'd felt like he could see straight through me, cataloging every secret and weakness. "You're still here," His voice was a low rumble, accented with the faintest trace of Italian that only emerged when he was tired or angry. I cleared my throat, attempting to sound professional rather than breathless. Marco said you needed the quarterly reports by morning. I'm almost finished with the third one. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. All 17? Yes, sir. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze dropping to the empty energy drink can on my desk, then to the stack of files beside my computer, then back to my face. I resisted the urge to fidget under that scrutiny, to touch my hair or smooth my skirt, or do any of the nervous things my body wanted to do. How long have you worked for me, Miss Morgan? The question surprised me. 2 years next month. And in those 2 years, have I ever asked you to complete an impossible task? I hesitated, unsure where this was going. You've asked for difficult tasks, but never impossible ones. 17 reports in. He checked his watch, the Patek Philippe catching the light. 7 hours is impossible. I can do it. The words came out more defensive than I intended. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm sure you believe that. However, I prefer my employees functional rather than martyred. Complete what you can tonight. The rest can wait until tomorrow. It was the longest conversation we'd ever had. Also the kindest thing he'd ever said to me. I wasn't sure how to respond. Thank you, sir. He nodded once and turned toward his office. I released the breath I'd been holding, my hands trembling slightly as I returned my attention to the report on my screen. But I felt his gaze on me, a physical weight that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Miss Morgan. I looked up again. He stood in his doorway, silhouetted by the soft lighting of his office. Go home at midnight. That's not a suggestion. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. I stared at the closed door, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. In 2 years, Theo Valentini had never expressed concern for my well-being, had never acknowledged that I might have limits or needs beyond producing perfect work, had never looked at me the way he just had, like I was something more than a piece of office furniture. I shook my head, dismissing the flutter of warmth in my stomach. He was my employer, a dangerous one, a criminal one, and I was nothing to him except a competent secretary who kept his legitimate business running smoothly while he did God knows what in the shadows. I finished 6 reports by midnight, each one as thorough as if I'd had all the time in the world. As I packed up my desk, I noticed a light still burning under Theo's door. He was still working, still building his empire, still being the man that half of Chicago feared and the other half pretended not to know existed. The next morning, I arrived at 7:30 a.m. to find a coffee from my favorite shop sitting on my desk, still hot. No note, no explanation, but I knew it hadn't appeared by magic. I sipped it slowly, letting the warmth spread through me, trying not to read too much into a simple gesture, trying not to remember the way he'd looked at me last night, like he'd suddenly remembered I was human. The morning passed in a blur of phone calls and emails. Theo had meetings all day, legitimate ones with contractors and suppliers, less legitimate ones with men who entered through the private elevator and left without signing in. I coordinated it all with the efficiency I'd perfected over 2 years, an invisible conductor of a dangerous orchestra. At 2 p.m., Marco appeared at my desk. Mr. Valentini wants you in the conference room. My stomach dropped. The conference room? Not his office? Conference room. Now. I gathered my tablet and notebook, my mind racing. In 2 years, I'd never been summoned to the conference room. That space was reserved for important meetings, for negotiations and decisions that shaped the direction of his empire. Secretaries didn't attend those meetings. The conference room was on the opposite end of the executive floor, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. When I entered, I found Theo seated at the head of the table with 3 other men. Two I recognized as regular associates, one I'd never seen before. The stranger was younger than the others, maybe early 30s, with the kind of polished good looks that came from expensive grooming and confidence. He turned as I entered, his eyes lighting with interest that made my skin crawl. "Ah, the secretary." His voice carried a hint of amusement. "You didn't mention she was so beautiful, Valentini." I kept my expression neutral, professional, as I'd learned to do when men looked at me like I was something to be consumed. I moved to the corner of the room where I usually positioned myself during the rare meetings I was asked to attend, close enough to hear, but far enough to be forgotten. "Miss Morgan handles my scheduling and correspondence," Theo said, his voice flat. "She's here to take notes." The stranger's smile widened. "Just scheduling? Seems like a waste of resources." I felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. The two associates suddenly found their paperwork fascinating. Theo's expression remained perfectly controlled, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Miss Morgan's responsibilities are clearly defined and none of your concern, Caruso." Caruso. I recognized the name now. Vincent Caruso, the son of a rival family trying to broker some kind of alliance with Theo's organization. This meeting was important, delicate, and I was somehow in the middle of it. Of course. Caruso held up his hands in mock surrender. "I meant no disrespect. I just wondered, does your beautiful secretary have a boyfriend? Because if not, I'd love to—" The sound of Theo's hand slamming on the table cut through the air like a gunshot. Papers jumped. The associates flinched. I froze, my pen hovering over my notebook. "This meeting is over." Theo's voice was lethal, each word enunciated with deadly precision. "Gentlemen, show Mr. Caruso out. Now." "But we haven't finished," Caruso began. "Out." The associates moved with practiced efficiency, flanking Caruso and guiding him toward the door. He went without further protest, though confusion and anger warred on his face. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone with Theo in the sudden, suffocating silence. I should leave. I should excuse myself and return to my desk and pretend this hadn't happened. But my legs wouldn't cooperate, rooted to the spot by something in the air, something electric and dangerous that made my pulse race. Theo stood slowly, his movements controlled but predatory. He walked around the table, each step measured and deliberate, until he stood directly in front of me. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and smoke. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Mr. Valentini, 2 years. His voice was low, almost a growl. 2 years I've watched you walk past my office. 2 years I've heard your voice on the phone. 2 years I've smelled your perfume and pretended not to notice. My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be happening. Theo Valentini didn't notice his secretary. Theo Valentini barely acknowledged my existence. "I don't understand," I whispered. He moved closer, backing me against the wall. His hands came up on either side of my head, caging me in. Not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You think I didn't see you?" His eyes searched mine, intense and burning. "You think I didn't notice? I notice everything about you, Tessa. Every fucking thing." He'd never used my first name before. The sound of it on his lips sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "Then why?" "Because you work for me." His jaw tightened. "Because you're good at your job and I didn't want to lose that. Because I thought I could control it, could keep you at a distance." His thumb traced my lower lip, the touch sending electricity through my entire body. "But then that bastard asked if you had a boyfriend, looked at you like you were something he could take, and I saw red." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was insane. This was my boss, my dangerous, criminal boss, who was currently pinning me against a wall and looking at me like he wanted to devour me. "You're mine, Tessa." The words came out rough, possessive. "You've been mine since the moment you walked into your interview wearing that blue dress and tried so hard to look confident. Mine since you stayed late that first week without being asked. Mine since you learned how I take my coffee without me ever telling you." His other hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Tell me you feel it too. Tell me these 2 years haven't just been hell for me." I should lie. I should push him away. I should remember that I need this job, that he's dangerous, that this could ruin everything. But God help me. I'd been lying to myself for 2 years. "I feel it," I breathed. The confession hung between us like a live wire, sparking and dangerous. Theo's thumb continued its torturous path along my lower lip, his eyes darkening with something that made my knees weak. "Say it again." His voice was rough, commanding. "I need to hear you say it again. I feel it." The words came easier this time, 2 years of denial crumbling under the intensity of his gaze. I've felt it since the beginning. I thought I was going crazy. A sound escaped him, somewhere between a growl and a laugh. "Crazy. Christ, Tessa. You have no idea what you've done to me. Sitting at that desk every day, so professional, so untouchable. Do you know how many times I've wanted to sweep everything off it and—" He cut himself off, his jaw clenching as he fought for control. His hand dropped from my face and he stepped back, putting necessary distance between us. The loss of his warmth felt like a physical blow. "This complicates things." He ran a hand through his dark hair, disheveling the perfectly styled strands. "You work for me. There are rules, expectations, and my life." He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything his life entailed. "My life isn't safe for someone like you." Reality crashed back in, cold and unforgiving. He was right. This was impossible. I needed this job, needed the salary that paid for my mother's treatment, kept a roof over my head, gave me a future. And he was Theo Valentini, a man whose business dealings included things I deliberately didn't think about, whose associates carried guns and spoke in code, whose enemies occasionally ended up in the Chicago River. I know. I straightened my spine, calling on every ounce of professionalism I possessed. "You're right. We should forget this happened. I'll go back to my desk and—" "I didn't say I was letting you go." His eyes locked on mine, stormy and intense. "I said it complicates things. There's a difference." My pulse jumped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I've spent 2 years keeping my distance. 2 years of discipline and control. And in 30 seconds, Vincent Caruso destroyed all of that by looking at what's mine." He moved closer again, not touching but close enough that I had to tilt my head back. "I don't share, Tessa. I don't lose. And I sure as hell don't let other men think they have a chance at something that belongs to me." "I don't belong to anyone," I said, trying to sound firm even as my body betrayed me, leaning into his proximity. His smile was dark, predatory. "Don't you? Then why is your pulse racing? Why are your pupils dilated? Why are you breathing like you've just run a marathon?" His hand came up to rest against the wall beside my head. "Your body knows the truth even if your mind is still fighting it." He was right, and I hated him for it. Hated the way my body responded to his nearness, the way my skin felt too sensitive, the way I wanted him to close that final distance and kiss me until I forgot every reason this was a terrible idea. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. "Everything." The word was simple, absolute. "But we'll start with dinner." I blinked, thrown by the sudden shift to normalcy. "Dinner? Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I'll pick you up." It wasn't a request. "Mr. Valentini. Theo." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "When we're alone, you call me Theo." Theo. I tested the name, foreign on my tongue after 2 years of careful formality. I don't think this is a good idea. Probably not. He stepped back, finally giving me space to breathe. But I've run out of good ideas where you're concerned. All I have left are bad ones, and I'm done fighting them. He returned to the conference table, gathering the papers that had scattered when he'd slammed his hand down. When he looked at me again, his expression had shifted, returning to the controlled mask I was familiar with. But I could see the cracks now, the heat simmering beneath the surface. Return to your desk, Miss Morgan. Finish the quarterly reports at your own pace. And tomorrow night, wear something nice. He paused at the door. But not too nice. I have very little self-control where you're concerned, and I'd prefer our first date to actually include dinner. He left me standing there, trembling and confused, and more alive than I'd felt in years. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I returned to my desk and attempted to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying the scene in the conference room. The way he'd looked at me, the things he'd said, the promise in his voice when he'd called me his. At 5:30 p.m., as I was packing up my desk, Marco appeared. His expression was unreadable as he placed a small box on my desk. From Mr. Valentini. I opened it with shaking hands to find a new phone, top of the line, already activated. A note inside read, "Your number is already programmed in. So is mine. I expect you to answer when I call. T." I looked up at Marco, questions forming, but he was already walking away. That evening, in my tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood that Theo probably had his men patrol, I stared at the new phone like it might bite me. It rang at exactly 8:09 p.m. "Hello? Did you eat dinner?" Theo's voice, deeper over the phone, sent shivers down my spine. Yes. I made pasta." "What kind?" The question was so mundane, so normal that I almost laughed. "Spaghetti aglio e olio. Why?" "I'm learning about you. What you eat, what you like, what makes you smile." A pause. "I've wasted 2 years, Tessa." "I'm not wasting any more time." We talked for an hour, about nothing and everything. He asked about my mother, and I found myself telling him about her illness, the medical bills, my guilt about being so far away. He listened without judgment, without offering empty platitudes. "She's proud of you," he said finally. "For surviving in a city like this, for working as hard as you do, for being strong enough to ask for help when you needed it." "I didn't ask for help. I just took a job." "You took a job working for the most dangerous man in Chicago. That takes courage or desperation." His voice softened. "I'm betting on both." He wasn't wrong. The next day at work felt different. Every time Theo walked past my desk, his hand would brush my shoulder, my arm, once the back of my neck in a touch so brief, I might have imagined it except for the fire it left behind. He found excuses to call me into his office. Questions about scheduling that he definitely knew the answers to. Requests for coffee that he could have asked Marco to handle. Each time, his eyes would trace over me with an hunger that made concentration impossible. At 7:00 p.m., he appeared at my desk in a different suit than he'd worn that morning. Charcoal gray that emphasized his broad shoulders, with a black shirt underneath that made his gray eyes look almost silver. "Ready? I need to go home and change first," I protested, looking down at my work clothes. "You look perfect. The reservation is at 8:30. We'll stop by your apartment first." He knew where I lived. Of course he knew where I lived. Theo Valentini knew everything about everyone in his orbit. His car was exactly what I expected. A black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver I recognized as one of his more intimidating associates. Theo held the door for me, his hand at the small of my back, burning through the fabric of my blouse. During the drive, his thigh pressed against mine in the back seat. His hand found mine, threading our fingers together with a possessiveness that should have alarmed me, but instead made me feel cherished. "Nervous?" he asked, Terrified. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually stern face. Good. So am I. You don't seem terrified. I'm excellent at hiding fear. It's a survival skill. His thumb traced circles on the inside of my wrist. But make no mistake, Tessa. This terrifies me. You terrify me. Because for the first time in my life, I found something I want more than power. The confession stole my breath. Before I could respond, the car pulled up to my building. Theo's expression darkened as he took in the exterior. The graffiti, the broken security door, the flickering streetlight. How long have you lived here? Since I moved to Chicago. It's affordable and close to the train. His jaw tightened. Pack a bag. What? Pack enough for a few days. You're not staying here anymore. Panic flared. Theo, I can't afford anywhere else. I've looked, believe me, but with my mother's medical bills, I'm not asking you to afford anything. His eyes met mine, intense and unyielding. I'm telling you that you're not spending another night in this neighborhood. I have a building downtown, secure, safe. There's a vacant unit. It's yours. I can't accept that. Yes, you can. You will. He cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. I told you yesterday. You're mine now. That means I protect what's mine. And I sure as hell don't let what's mine live somewhere that makes me want to post armed guards in the hallway. This is too much, too fast. Probably. But I don't do anything halfway, Tessa. You should know that about me. In the end, I packed a bag. Because the truth was, I'd been afraid in this apartment since the day I moved in. Afraid of the sounds in the hallway, the broken locks, the men who sometimes gathered on the corner at night. And because something in Theo's eyes told me that refusing him this would hurt him in a way that had nothing to do with ego. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance. We were seated in a private corner, secluded from the main dining room. Theo ordered in flawless Italian, his accent more pronounced as he spoke to the server. You speak Italian, I observed. My father insisted, said a man should know the language of his heritage. Something dark crossed his face. He insisted on a lot of things. Is he still alive? No. He died when I was 22. Left me his empire and all the responsibilities that came with it. He took a sip of wine. I wasn't ready, but you don't get to choose when power falls into your lap. You either grab it or it destroys you. Do you ever wish you'd walked away? Chosen something else? His smile was bitter. Every day. But wishing doesn't change reality. This life, this business, it's who I am. I've made peace with that. The food arrived, course after course of perfectly prepared Italian cuisine. We talked between bites, the conversation flowing easier than I expected. He asked about my childhood in Ohio, my decision to move to Chicago. My dreams before reality forced me to abandon them. I wanted to be a teacher, I admitted. Elementary school. I loved working with kids, seeing them learn, watching that moment when something clicks and they understand. Why didn't you? My mother got sick the summer before my senior year of college. I dropped out to take care of her, used my tuition money for her treatment. By the time she was stable enough for me to leave, I had debt instead of a degree. I shrugged. Life had other plans. Theo's hand covered mine on the table. You sacrificed your dreams for her. That's not nothing, Tessa. That's everything. Dessert arrived, tiramisu that melted on my tongue. Theo watched me eat, with an intensity that made me self-conscious. What? I asked. I'm memorizing you. The way you close your eyes when something tastes good. The little sound you make in the back of your throat. The way your lips curve when you smile. His voice dropped lower. I told you. I've wasted 2 years. I'm making up for lost time. Heat flooded through me. Theo, I want to kiss you. His eyes locked on mine. I've wanted to kiss you since yesterday, since last year, since the day you walked into my office wearing that blue dress. Then why haven't you? Because once I start, I'm not sure I'll be able to stop. And we're in public, and you deserve better than me losing control in the middle of a restaurant. The ride to his building downtown was torture. His hand rested on my thigh, not moving, just claiming. The heat of his palm burned through my skirt. I could feel his restraint, see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness of his jaw. The apartment he'd arranged for me was on the 20th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was furnished, elegant, larger than anywhere I'd ever lived. The building has 24-hour security, Theo explained, showing me the security features. Marco lives on the 15th floor. My penthouse is on the 40th. He handed me a keycard. This will get you anywhere in the building, including the private elevator to my place. I can't afford this. Consider it part of your benefits package. He moved closer, backing me against the kitchen counter. I take care of what's mine, Tessa. Get used to it. His hand cupped the back of my neck, tilting my head up. Tell me to leave. Tell me you need time, space, boundaries. Tell me anything except what I want to hear. What do you want to hear? That you want this as much as I do. That these 2 years have been as agonizing for you as they've been for me. That you're ready to stop fighting this thing between us. I should tell him to leave. Should establish boundaries. Take things slow. Be reasonable. But I was so tired of being reasonable, of sacrificing, of denying myself anything good, because life had taught me that good things always came with a price. Kiss me, I whispered. He didn't need to be told twice. His mouth crashed against mine, hungry and demanding. His hands framed my face, angling me exactly where he wanted me. I gasped against his lips and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't remember why this was supposed to be a bad idea. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his thumb tracing my swollen lower lip. 2 years, he murmured. 2 years I've wondered if you'd taste this good. Reality exceeds imagination. Theo, I should go. But he didn't move. If I stay, I won't be able to keep my hands off you, and you deserve more than a rushed first time against your kitchen counter. Maybe I don't want to wait. His eyes darkened dangerously. Don't tempt me, Tessa. I'm barely holding on as it is. He kissed me again, softer this time, almost reverent. Then he stepped back, putting necessary distance between us. Tomorrow morning, Marco will pick you up for work. You're not taking the train anymore. He moved toward the door. And Tessa? Lock the door behind me. Use the security system. I'll know if you don't. After he left, I leaned against the closed door, my lips still tingling from his kisses. My phone buzzed with a text. Sleep well, Bella Mia. Tomorrow, I show you what it means to be mine. T. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into. But God help me, I wanted to find out. I didn't sleep well. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes I felt Theo's hands on my face, his mouth claiming mine with a hunger that left me breathless. The new apartment was silent in a way my old place never was. No sirens, no shouting neighbors, no footsteps in the hallway that made me check the locks twice before bed. Here, 20 floors above the city, I felt suspended in a different world. Theo's world. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Marco. Lobby in 1 hour. I showered quickly. The water pressure alone worth the moral compromise of accepting this apartment. As I dried off, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My lips were still slightly swollen from Theo's kisses. There was a faint mark on my neck where his thumb had pressed. Not quite a bruise, but evidence nonetheless. Evidence that last night had been real. I dressed carefully. A burgundy sheath dress that was professional but fitted. The kind of thing I'd bought months ago but never had the courage to wear. Today felt different. Today I wasn't trying to be invisible. Marco was waiting in the lobby at exactly 7 a.m., his expression as unreadable as ever. He held the car door open without a word, and I slid into the back seat of the black Mercedes. "Good morning," I ventured. "Miss Morgan." He started the engine. "Mr. Valentini asked me to ensure you understand the building's security protocols. You have 24-hour access to his private gym, the rooftop terrace, and the business center. Any maintenance issues should be reported directly to building management. They've been instructed to treat your requests as priority." "That's not necessary. It's already arranged." His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Valentini takes care of his people. You're his people now. That comes with certain privileges." The way he said it made it clear there were also obligations, expectations. I was beginning to understand that nothing in Theo's world was simple. The office felt different when we arrived. Or maybe I felt different. I went through my morning routine, starting coffee, checking Theo's calendar, reviewing overnight emails. But I was hyper-aware of every sound, every movement, waiting for him to arrive. He walked in at 8:30 a.m., and the air in the office shifted. He was in a navy suit today, with a white shirt and no tie, the top 2 buttons undone. His eyes found mine immediately, and the heat in them made my mouth go dry. "Miss Morgan." His voice was professional, but his eyes told a different story. "My office. Now." I gathered my tablet and followed him, acutely aware of Marco's knowing look. The moment Theo's office door closed behind us, he was on me. His hands framed my face as he kissed me with a desperation that stole my breath. "Missed you," he murmured against my lips. "All night, I kept thinking about how you tasted, how you sounded when you gasped my name." "Theo, we're at work." "I don't care." His mouth moved to my neck, finding that sensitive spot below my ear that made my knees weak. "I've spent 2 years caring about propriety and professionalism. I'm done with that." His hands slid down my sides, resting on my hips. "This dress. Christ, Tessa. Are you trying to kill me? I thought you'd like it." "Like it?" He pulled back to look at me, his eyes dark. "I want to peel it off you slowly and map every inch of skin underneath, but we have a problem." "What problem?" "I have meetings all morning, including one with the Caruso family to smooth over yesterday's incident." His jaw tightened. "Vincent will be there with his father. I need you to stay away from the conference room. Actually, I need you to stay locked in here until they leave." "That's ridiculous. I have work to do." "Tessa." His voice was steel. "I barely controlled myself yesterday when he looked at you. If he so much as speaks your name today, I'll put a bullet in him, alliance be damned. So unless you want to witness a murder, you'll stay in my office." The casual way he referenced killing someone should have terrified me. Instead, a dark thrill ran through me at the possessiveness in his voice, the barely leashed violence simmering beneath his controlled exterior. "Okay," I whispered. He kissed me again, softer this time. "I'll have lunch brought up. We'll eat together, just us." His thumb traced my lower lip. "And tonight, I'm taking you somewhere. Somewhere I can touch you without worrying about propriety or witnesses." "Where?" "You'll see." He stepped back reluctantly. "Work from here today. If you need anything, text me. Don't leave this office until I come back for you." The morning crawled by. I worked from Theo's desk, the leather chair still warm from where he'd sat earlier, smelling faintly of his cologne. Through the closed door, I could hear muffled voices, meetings happening, business being conducted, the machinery of his empire turning. At 11 p.m., I heard raised voices from the conference room. Italian, spoken too rapidly for me to follow, but the anger was unmistakable. Then Theo's voice, cold and commanding, cutting through the chaos. Silence followed. My phone buzzed. Stay put. Everything's fine. At 12:30 p.m., he returned. His expression was dark, his movements tight with barely contained fury. He locked the office door behind him. "What happened?" I asked. Vincent suggested that perhaps my attachment to you was clouding my judgment, that I was letting personal feelings interfere with business. He loosened his collar, the gesture violent. His father agreed, said I should share the wealth to maintain good relations between our families. Ice flooded my veins. They want nothing, because I made it very clear that you are non-negotiable, that any man who looks at you wrong will answer to me personally. He moved to the window, his shoulders rigid. I may have jeopardized a multi-million-dollar alliance. My advisors think I'm losing my mind. Are they right? He turned to face me, his expression raw. Probably. But I don't care. You're worth more than any alliance, any deal, any amount of money or power. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Do you understand what you've done to me? I've built my entire life on control, on strategy, on never letting emotion cloud judgment. And then you walked into my world and destroyed all of that. His hands cupped my face, urgent and tender simultaneously. I should let you go, send you somewhere safe, somewhere far from this life, give you money, set you up, make sure you never have to work another day. That would be the right thing to do. But you're not going to do that. No, his forehead pressed against mine, because I'm selfish, because I've tasted you now and I can't imagine going back. Because the thought of you with anyone else makes me want to burn the world down. I don't want to be sent away. You should. You should run from me as fast as you can. But I won't. I met his eyes, seeing the darkness there, the danger, the barely controlled violence, and I stayed anyway. Whatever this is, whatever we're doing, I'm choosing it. I'm choosing you. Something broke in him. He kissed me with a desperation that bordered on violence, his hands tangling in my hair, his body pressing me against the desk. Papers scattered. I didn't care. Nothing mattered except the feel of him, the taste of him, the way he made me feel alive for the first time in years. A sharp knock at the door made us freeze. Boss. Marco's voice. The Bratva representative is early. Theo's forehead dropped to my shoulder, his breath coming hard. 5 minutes. He says it's urgent. 5 minutes. Marco's footsteps retreated. Theo pulled back, his hand shaking slightly as he smoothed my hair, straightened my dress. His eyes were wild, unfocused. Tonight, he promised. No interruptions, no business, just us. He kissed me once more, gentle this time, almost reverent. Then he straightened his collar, smoothed back his hair, and transformed back into Theo Valentini, cold, controlled, dangerous. Stay here. I'll send lunch up. This meeting shouldn't take more than an hour. After he left, I collapsed into his chair, my body trembling with adrenaline and unsatisfied desire. This was insane. We were at his office. Anyone could have walked in. But God help me. I'd wanted him to keep going. Propriety be damned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're playing a dangerous game, Miss Morgan. Theo Valentini destroys everything he touches. You'll be no exception. My blood ran cold. I forwarded the message to Theo immediately. His response was instant. Don't respond. Don't worry. I'm handling it. Tea lunch arrived at 1 p.m. Italian food from a restaurant I recognized as one of the most expensive in the city. Marco brought it up personally, along with a bottle of water and a folded note. I ordered all your favorites. Eat. You'll need your strength for tonight. Tea. How did he know my favorites? Then I remembered. 2 years of lunch orders, of preferences carefully noted and filed away. He'd been paying attention all along. The afternoon passed in a blur of work. I responded to emails, updated spreadsheets, coordinated schedules. Normal tasks in an increasingly abnormal situation. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, hoping it was Theo, fearing it was another threatening message. At 5:30 p.m., he appeared in the doorway. Ready? Where are we going? Home, my home. He offered his hand. I want to show you something. The penthouse occupied the entire 40th floor. When the private elevator doors opened, I stepped into a space that was more museum than apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Chicago. Modern art hung on walls painted in shades of gray and cream. Everything was immaculate, expensive, and oddly impersonal. This is where you live. This is where I sleep. I wouldn't call it living. He led me through the main room to a set of double doors. But there's one room that's different. He opened the doors to reveal a library. Unlike the rest of the penthouse, this room felt lived in. Books lined every wall, worn spines suggesting they'd been read multiple times. A leather armchair sat by the window, a table beside it with a half-empty glass of whiskey, and a book left open, face down. This is where I come when the weight of everything becomes too much, Theo said quietly. When I need to remember that there's more to life than business and violence and obligation. He moved to a shelf and pulled out a worn paperback. My mother gave me this before she died. The Count of Monte Cristo. She said it was about a man who lost everything and clawed his way back through patience and planning. She told me that revenge is a dish best served cold, but that love is meant to burn hot. How old were you when she died? 16. Cancer. My father was devastated. He became harder after that, more ruthless. Said grief was weakness, and weakness got you killed. He set the book down carefully. I think he was just afraid of feeling anything after losing her. I moved closer, drawn by the vulnerability in his voice. Is that what you're afraid of? Feeling? I'm afraid of what I feel when I'm with you. I'm afraid I'll lose control. I'm afraid I'll hurt you, not physically, but in all the ways that matter. His hand cupped my cheek. You deserve better than this life, Tessa. Better than a man with blood on his hands and enemies at every corner. Maybe I don't want better. Maybe I just want you. He kissed me slowly, thoroughly, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. Then he pulled back, his eyes searching mine. I need to tell you something. About how this started. About how I ended up in this life. We sat in the leather armchair together, me curled against his side, his arm around my shoulders. And for the first time, Theo Valentini, the man half of Chicago feared, let someone see beneath the armor. My father was third-generation mafia, old school, traditional. He raised me to take over the family business like it was a birthright, not a choice. When I was 22 and finishing my MBA, he was killed in a hit ordered by a rival family. They thought with him gone, our organization would crumble. His jaw tightened. They were wrong. I took over immediately. Hunted down everyone involved in my father's death and made examples of them. Brutal, public examples. By the time I was done, no one questioned my authority. You were so young. I was angry. Grief does that. Turns you into someone you don't recognize. I told myself I was honoring my father's legacy, protecting our family's interests. But the truth is, I liked the power, the control. The way people moved when I spoke, feared when I frowned. He looked at me. I became exactly what my father wanted, a monster who could run an empire. You're not a monster, aren't I? I've killed men, Tessa, ordered deaths, destroyed lives. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. But you've also built legitimate businesses, employed thousands of people. I've seen the books. I know about the scholarships you fund, the community centers, the anonymous donations to hospitals. That's guilt, not altruism. Trying to balance the scales. But some scales can't be balanced. I turned to face him fully. Why are you telling me this? Trying to scare me away? I'm telling you, because you deserve to know who you're getting involved with, what you're choosing. Because once we cross this line completely, once I make you truly mine, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world, for better or worse. What if I've already crossed the line? I touched his face, feeling the rough stubble of his jaw. What if I crossed it 2 years ago and have just been fighting it ever since? His eyes darkened. Then God help us both. He kissed me with a fierce tenderness, his hands gentle despite the hunger in his touch. He stood, lifting me with him, and carried me through the penthouse to his bedroom. The room was sparse. A massive bed, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city lights, little else. He set me on my feet beside the bed, his hands framing my face. "Last chance," he said, his voice rough. "Tell me to stop. Tell me you need more time. Tell me anything except yes." "Yes," I breathed. "Yes to what? I need to hear you say it. Yes to you, to this, to us, to whatever comes next." Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "You're mine now. Do you understand? Mine to protect. Mine to cherish." His thumb traced my lower lip. "Mine to claim. Then claim me." He did. And the world outside, the danger, the complications, the impossibility of us, ceased to exist. Later, wrapped in his arms with the city lights painting patterns across the ceiling, I felt his lips against my hair. "I won't let anything happen to you," he murmured. "Whatever threats come, whatever consequences this brings, I'll handle it. You're under my protection now." "Theo?" "Yes, Bella?" "I think I'm falling in love with you." He went still. Then he tilted my face up to his eyes intense in the darkness. "I fell in love with you the day you stayed late without being asked, made my coffee without me telling you how, and looked at me like I was just a man instead of a monster." He kissed me softly. "I've been yours for 2 years, Tessa. I'm just glad you're finally mine." Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting Theo's bedroom in shades of gold. I woke slowly, awareness returning in layers. The silk sheets against my bare skin, the unfamiliar weight of an arm draped across my waist, the solid warmth of a body pressed against my back. Theo. Last night came rushing back in vivid detail. The way he'd touched me, worshipped me, claimed me with a tenderness that contradicted everything I knew about him. The words he'd whispered in Italian against my skin. Beautiful sounds I didn't understand but felt in my bones. The way he'd held me afterward, like I was something precious he was afraid might disappear. "You're thinking too loud." His voice rumbled behind me, still rough with sleep. His lips brushed my shoulder. "I can hear your thoughts from here. I'm just processing. Having regrets?" There was vulnerability in the question, carefully hidden but there nonetheless. I turned in his arms to face him. In the morning light, without the armor of his expensive suits and carefully controlled expressions, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. Dark hair fell across his forehead. Stubble shadowed his jaw. His gray eyes watched me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "No regrets," I said softly. "But I'm wondering what happens now. Do we pretend at the office? Do we—" "No pretending." His hand cupped my face. "I'm done hiding how I feel about you. Everyone in my organization will know by the end of today that you're under my protection, that you're mine. Won't that make me a target?" Something dark flickered across his face. "It makes you untouchable. Anyone who even thinks about harming you will answer to me personally." He kissed me, slow and thorough. "But we do need to establish some protocols. Marco will assign you a security detail." "A what?" "Non-negotiable." His voice turned to steel. "You're connected to me now. That comes with risks. I won't take chances with your safety." I wanted to argue, to protest the invasion of privacy, the loss of independence. But I'd seen enough in 2 years to know that Theo's world was dangerous, that people who crossed him tended to disappear, that his enemies would see me as a weakness to exploit. "Okay," I said finally, "but they have to be subtle. I'm not having armed guards following me into coffee shops." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Marco's team is very good at being invisible when necessary. You won't even notice them most of the time." "Most of the time?" "There may be situations where discretion becomes secondary to protection. You'll have to trust me on this, Tessa." His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He reached for it with a sigh, scanning the messages. His expression darkened. "What is it?" "The Caruso family is pushing back on yesterday's meeting. Vincent's father is demanding a formal apology and reparations for the insult to his son." Theo's jaw tightened. "They're threatening to withdraw from our shipping agreement and align with the Moretti family instead." "What are you going to do?" "Handle it." He set the phone down and returned his attention to me. "But first, I'm going to make you breakfast because I'm discovering I enjoy taking care of you, and my calendar is clear until 10. "You cook?" "My mother insisted, said a man who couldn't feed himself was no man at all." He slid out of bed unself-consciously, pulling on black boxer briefs that did nothing to hide his perfect form. "Stay here. I'll bring it up." I watched him leave, then rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. This was insane. 24 hours ago, I'd been his invisible secretary. Now I was in his bed, wearing his protection like armor, stepping into a world I didn't fully understand. My phone buzzed from the nightstand where I'd left it last night. A text from Marco. Security detail assigned. "Officer Chen will introduce herself when you arrive at the office. She'll be your primary protection." Then another text from an unknown number. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Theo always gets bored of his toys eventually. My blood ran cold. I deleted the message immediately, but my hands were shaking. Who was sending these? And how did they have my number? Theo returned 20 minutes later with a tray, perfectly scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, fresh fruit, and coffee made exactly how I liked it. He'd pulled on gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips, leaving his chest and abdomen bare. Defined muscles moved under tanned skin, and I caught sight of a scar along his ribs. Long, jagged, the kind made by a knife rather than a surgeon. What happened? I touched the scar gently. 5 years ago. Disagreement with a rival organization. He thought a blade would make his point more effectively than words. Theo's voice was casual, but his eyes had gone cold. He was wrong. Did you? Yes. No hesitation, no remorse. He came at me with a knife. I defended myself with a gun. The outcome was predictable. I should have been horrified. Should have seen that moment for what it was, a glimpse into the violence that defined his life. Instead, I found myself tracing the scar, this evidence that he was mortal, that he'd been hurt and survived. You're not scared of me, he observed, something like wonder in his voice. Should I be? Most people are. Most women definitely are. I'm not most women. I met his eyes. And I think you've hurt a lot of people, Theo. But I don't think you'd ever hurt me. Never. The word was fierce, absolute. I would burn the world down before I let harm come to you. We ate breakfast together, the domesticity of it surreal. Theo Valentini, feeding me strawberries and stealing kisses between bites. Making me laugh with stories about his nephew. Showing me the human being beneath the monster everyone feared. At 9:30, we dressed for work. I wore one of the new outfits from the apartment. A fitted black dress with a leather jacket, subtle but elegant. Theo circled me slowly, his eyes heating. You look like you belong to me, he said, satisfaction in his voice. Is that a compliment? It's everything. He pulled me against him, his lips finding that sensitive spot below my ear. Tonight, we have dinner with my sister and her husband. They want to meet the woman who's finally made me lose my carefully cultivated self-control. Panic fluttered in my chest. Your family? Already? Rosa's been pestering me for months to bring someone to Sunday dinner. She'll love you. He kissed me softly. And if she doesn't, it won't matter. You're mine either way. The ride to the office was different than every other morning in my 2 years working for Theo. Instead of sitting in professional silence, his hand rested possessively on my thigh. He pointed out buildings he owned, restaurants he had interests in, areas of the city under his protection. Showing me his kingdom. Marco was waiting in the garage when we arrived, along with a petite Asian woman in her early 30s, wearing dark jeans and a blazer that didn't quite hide the holster at her hip. Miss Morgan, this is Officer Chen, Marco introduced. Former Secret Service, highly trained in close protection. She'll be your primary security from now on. Chen offered her hand with a professional smile. Please, call me Amy. I'll be staying close but unobtrusive. Most of the time, you won't even notice I'm there. And the rest of the time? The rest of the time, there will be a threat that requires my presence to be more obvious. In those situations, I need you to follow my instructions immediately and without question. Your safety is my only priority. Theo's hand found the small of my back. Amy has full authority to override any plans or decisions if she deems them unsafe. That includes events I've arranged. Her judgment is final. The weight of what was happening settled over me. This was real. I wasn't just dating my boss. I was entering a world where armed protection was necessary, where threats were common enough to require protocols, where my life had just been handed over to a stranger for safekeeping. The elevator ride to the executive floor was crowded. Theo, Marco, Amy, and me. When the doors opened, I saw that the usual morning bustle had stilled. People were staring, whispering. News had already spread. Theo kept his hand on my back as we walked to my desk, a public declaration of ownership that made several secretaries exchange loaded glances. Amy positioned herself by the wall, unobtrusive but present. Conference call in 30 minutes, Theo said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Miss Morgan, I'll need you in my office to take notes. The pretense of professional necessity was thin, but it was something. I gathered my tablet and followed him into his office, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking my movements. The moment the door closed, he pulled me into his arms. Ignore them. Let them gossip. By the end of the week, it will be old news. And if they don't respect me anymore, if they think I slept my way into preferential treatment, then they're idiots who don't know you earned your position through competence and dedication. His eyes hardened. And if anyone is stupid enough to say that to your face, they'll be looking for a new job by the end of the day. The conference call was with investors in one of Theo's legitimate businesses, a chain of upscale Italian restaurants. I took notes dutifully, watching him transform into the businessman persona. Charming, confident, persuasive. No hint of the violence simmering beneath the surface. When the call ended, Marco appeared in the doorway. The Caruso situation requires your immediate attention. Vincent's father is here with his lawyer. Theo's expression turned to ice. Send them to conference room 1. Gather the advisors, and get Franco on the phone. I want our lawyer present for whatever bullshit they're about to spew. He turned to me. Stay in here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Marco or Amy. Theo, please. His hand cupped my face. I need to know you're safe while I deal with this. Can you do that for me? I nodded, and he kissed me fiercely before striding out. Amy slipped into the office before the door closed. I'll stay with you, she said calmly. Just a precaution. Do you think something's going to happen? I think Mr. Valentini is cautious, and caution keeps people alive. The next hour was agonizing. I tried to work, but every raised voice from the conference room made me jump. At one point, I heard something crash, glass breaking, maybe furniture overturning. Then Theo's voice, low and deadly, cutting through the chaos. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. He's going to get you killed. Walk away while you still can. I showed the message to Amy. She read it, her expression neutral. I'll have Marco trace the number. In the meantime, don't respond. Don't engage. Who would do this? Who's sending these? Could be a lot of people. Mr. Valentini has enemies. Some of them might see you as a way to hurt him. Others might genuinely believe they're helping you by warning you away. She met my eyes. But my job isn't to figure out their motives. It's to keep you breathing. Finally, the conference room doors opened. I heard footsteps, multiple people moving. Then Theo's voice, cold and final. Tell Vincent that if he comes near Tessa again, I'll put a bullet in him myself. Father or no father, alliance or no alliance. That's not a threat, it's a promise. Silence. Then the sound of the elevator doors opening and closing. Theo appeared in his office doorway moments later. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, a fresh cut on his knuckles. But his eyes were blazing with satisfaction. It's handled. What happened? They wanted reparations, a significant cut of our shipping profits for the next year as compensation for the disrespect shown to Vincent. He moved to his desk, pouring whiskey from a crystal decanter. I told them to go fuck themselves. Theo, they threatened to align with the Morettis, to cut us out of the eastern shipping routes entirely. He drank the whiskey in one swallow. I reminded them that the Morettis are in bed with the FBI, that their organization is being dismantled from the inside, and that aligning with them would be suicide. And they backed down? Eventually, after I made it clear that I would sooner burn every ship in the harbor than give them $1 for their wounded pride. He set the glass down, his eyes finding mine, and I made it very, very clear that you are untouchable. That any attempt to use you against me would be met with immediate and brutal retaliation. I should have been terrified by the casual violence in his voice. Instead, I felt protected. Safe. Like I was standing in the eye of a hurricane, sheltered by the very storm that threatened to destroy everything around me. Come here, he said softly. I went to him, and he pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my hair. For a long moment, we just stood there, his heart thundering against my chest. I've made you a target, he said finally. By claiming you publicly, by refusing to back down, I've painted a bullseye on your back. I know. And you're staying anyway? I pulled back to look at him. I'm staying anyway. Relief and something darker, possession maybe, or triumph, flashed in his eyes. He kissed me, hard and claiming, like he was sealing a deal that couldn't be undone. The door opened without warning. Marco stood there, his expression grim. Boss, we have a situation. The Bratva just made a move on one of our warehouses. 3 of our men are down. Theo's entire demeanor shifted. The man who'd been holding me tenderly vanished, replaced by the cold strategist. Fatalities. 2 dead, 1 critical. Get our people out of there. Lock down all secondary locations and find out who ordered the hit. His voice was lethal. I want names by tonight. Marco nodded and disappeared. Theo turned back to me, his eyes hard. This is what I meant about my world being dangerous. People die. Enemies make moves. Violence is the currency we trade in. He touched my face gently, a stark contrast to the fury in his voice. Last chance, Tessa. Walk away now, and I'll make sure you're protected. Set up somewhere safe. But if you stay, you're all in. There's no middle ground. I thought about my mother in Ohio, about the medical bills that were finally getting paid. I thought about my tiny studio apartment that I'd never have to return to. I thought about 2 years of invisibility, of feeling like I didn't matter, of surviving rather than living. And I thought about the way Theo looked at me, like I was the most important thing in his world, like I was worth burning empires for. I'm all in, I said. His smile was fierce, possessive. Then buckle up, Bella Mia, because this is just the beginning. The warehouse attack changed everything. What had been a slow courtship, a careful dance between desire and propriety, became something harder, more urgent. Theo's world was bleeding into mine, and there was no turning back. That evening, instead of the quiet dinner with his sister he'd planned, we found ourselves in an emergency meeting with his top advisors. I sat in the corner of the conference room, Amy stationed nearby, watching Theo transform into the leader everyone feared. The Bratva hit wasn't random, Marco said, spreading photos across the table. They knew exactly which warehouse to target, knew our security protocols, knew when the shift change happened. Someone fed them information. A rat. Theo's voice was ice. In my organization. An older man I recognized as Salvatore, Theo's chief advisor, leaned forward. Could be someone from the Caruso family, retaliating for this afternoon's meeting. Or someone who doesn't like the boss getting distracted. This came from a younger man named Dante, his eyes flickering briefly to me before returning to Theo. No disrespect intended, but the timing is suspicious. You claim a woman publicly, and within hours we're hit. The temperature in the room dropped. Theo's hand, which had been resting casually on the table, curled into a fist. Are you suggesting my personal life is responsible for the deaths of my men? Dante had the sense to look nervous. I'm suggesting that maybe our enemies see an opportunity, that maybe they think you're vulnerable now. Then they're about to learn a very painful lesson about what happens when they mistake love for weakness. Theo's eyes swept the room. Tessa stays. She's under my protection, which means she's under all of our protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now, and we'll call it a mutual parting of ways. Silence. No one moved. Good. Now, Marco, I want a full audit of everyone who had access to that warehouse's schedule. Cross-reference with recent financial transactions. Look for anyone who's suddenly spending beyond their means. And put the word out on the street. I'm offering $100,000 for information on who gave up our location. The meeting continued for another hour, plans being made, strategies discussed. I tried to focus on my notes, but my mind kept circling back to Dante's words. Was I really making Theo vulnerable? Were people dying because of me? When the meeting finally ended, Theo dismissed everyone except Marco. The moment the door closed, he turned to me. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't you dare blame yourself for what happened today. How did you know? Because I know you. I know that brilliant, compassionate mind is already finding ways to make this your fault. He moved to where I sat, kneeling in front of me so we were eye level. The Bratva made a move because they see an opportunity to expand their territory. They've been planning this for months. You're not the cause, Tessa. You're just the excuse Dante used to voice his concerns. He might have a point, though. Maybe you are distracted. I'm focused. His hands framed my face. For the first time in years, I have something beyond this organization to care about. Something worth protecting. That doesn't make me weaker. It makes me more dangerous. Because now I have something to lose. Marco cleared his throat. Boss, we should get you both out of here. If the Bratva is making moves, this building isn't secure. Where? The estate. Full security team. Controlled perimeter. I've already called ahead. Theo nodded, then looked at me. Pack a bag from your apartment. We're staying at my family's estate until this situation is resolved. How long will that take? As long as necessary. His expression was grim. Until I've eliminated the threat or negotiated a peace, whichever comes first. The drive to collect my things was tense. Amy sat in the front passenger seat, her hand resting casually near her weapon. Marco drove, his eyes constantly scanning the mirrors. I was wedged between Theo and another guard in the back, feeling simultaneously protected and trapped. Tell me about the estate, I said, needing to fill the silence. It's where I grew up, Theo said, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. About an hour north of the city on Lake Michigan. My grandfather built it in the 50s, when the family first established themselves in Chicago. 20 acres, completely private. My sister Rosa still lives in the guest house with her husband and son. And you're okay with me meeting them? Under these circumstances? Rosa's been demanding to meet you since I mentioned your name last week. She'll be thrilled, crisis or no crisis. A small smile touched his lips. My nephew Marco, named after this one, will probably interrogate you about whether you can play video games. He's 8 and very serious about his gaming. The normalcy of the description was jarring. Video games and family dinners felt impossibly distant from warehouse attacks and dead bodies. We stopped at my apartment just long enough for me to throw clothes into a bag. Amy came inside with me, her presence both comforting and unsettling. She checked every room, looked in closets, even tested the windows. Clear, she said finally. But pack quickly. We don't want to stay exposed longer than necessary. Back in the car, heading north out of the city, I watched the lights fade behind us. The highway stretched dark and endless, and I felt like I was leaving my old life behind with every mile. What are you thinking? Theo asked softly. That 3 days ago, I was a secretary worried about making rent. Now I'm fleeing the city because a Russian mob is making moves against my boyfriend, who happens to be the head of the Italian mafia. Boyfriend is a rather pedestrian term for what we are. What are we then? He was quiet for a moment. You're mine. I'm yours. Everything else is just semantics. The estate appeared suddenly, a sweeping driveway lined with trees opening onto a sprawling stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Italian countryside. Lights blazed from every window. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. A woman appeared on the front steps as we pulled up, petite, dark-haired, probably early 30s. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, but her face was pure Valentini. Those same storm-gray eyes, that same strong bone structure. Finally, she called out. I was beginning to think you'd chickened out, Theo. Rosa. There was warmth in his voice I'd never heard before. He climbed out of the car and pulled his sister into a hug. Where's the monster? Passed out after a sugar high. Your fault for sending him that care package. She turned to me as I emerged from the car, her eyes assessing but kind. And you must be Tessa, the woman who finally made my brother remember he's human. I liked her immediately. I'm not sure I can take credit for that. Oh, honey, you absolutely can. She linked her arm through mine, already pulling me toward the house. Come on, I'll show you your room. Theo, Go do whatever violent planning you need to do. I'm stealing your girlfriend." "She's not my girlfriend," Theo called after us. "What is she then?" Rosa shot back. "Mine?" Rosa snorted. "Men. So dramatic." She guided me through the massive entryway, past rooms filled with expensive furniture and family photos. "He's been impossible for 2 years, you know. Moody, distracted, snapping at everyone. I kept telling him he needed to get laid, but apparently he needed to fall in love instead. I don't think... Oh, please. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Like you're the only real thing in a world of shadows." She stopped at a door on the 2nd floor. "This is the guest suite. Your things should arrive shortly. Bathroom's through there. Closet is fully stocked if you need anything. My place is the guest house past the garden if you need girl talk, or an escape from all the testosterone." "Thank you, Rosa." She touched my arm gently. "No, thank you. For making him happy. For giving him something to care about beyond this life. God knows he deserves it." After she left, I explored the suite. It was easily 3 times the size of my entire apartment, with a 4-poster bed, a sitting area, and windows overlooking the lake. The closet was indeed stocked. Designer clothes in my size, shoes, even jewelry. Theo's work, obviously. I was examining a particularly beautiful dress when I heard the door open. Theo stood in the doorway, his jacket gone, his sleeves rolled up, exhaustion written across his face. "Rosa didn't scare you off?" "She's wonderful. I like her." "She likes you too. I can tell." He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. "She said you look at me like I'm worthy of being loved, which apparently is something I needed in my life." "You are worthy of being loved. Most people would disagree." He pulled me into his arms, his face buried in my hair. "2 men died today, Tessa. Good men with families. And it's my fault for not seeing the threat sooner, for not having better security protocols. You can't control everything. In my world, if you don't control everything, people die." He pulled back, his eyes haunted. "That's what Dante meant. Not that you're a distraction, but that I'm responsible for keeping everyone safe. And I failed today." I touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. "So what happens now?" "Now I find who's responsible. I make an example of them. And I reinforce every security measure until my organization is impenetrable." His eyes darkened. "And I keep you safe, whatever it takes." "What if keeping me safe means letting me go?" "Not an option." His hands tightened on my waist. "I told you, I'm selfish. I'd rather fight every enemy in Chicago than lose you." A knock at the door interrupted us. Marco's voice came through. "Boss, we have a lead on the informant. Looks like it was one of the warehouse guards, guy named Tommy Ricci, Marco's cousin 3 times removed. He's disappeared, but we found evidence of a payment from a Bratva-associated account." Theo's entire body went rigid. Marco's cousin? Distant cousin. Marco had no idea the guy was dirty. "Where is Marco now?" "Downstairs, waiting for your orders." Theo closed his eyes briefly, something like pain flashing across his face. "Tell him I'll be down in 5 minutes." After the footsteps retreated, he turned back to me. "This is the part you don't see. The part where I have to make impossible decisions. What are you going to do?" "Marco is my most trusted advisor. He's been with me since we were teenagers. But his cousin betrayed the organization, got 2 men killed." His jaw clenched. "Tradition says Marco should handle it personally, should be the one to eliminate the threat his family brought to our organization. But you don't want him to. I don't want any of this." His voice was raw. "I don't want to ask my best friend to hunt down and kill his own cousin. I don't want to live in a world where that's necessary. But this is the world I have, and if I show weakness, if I let this slide, every enemy we have will see it as an opening." He kissed me softly. Stay here. Lock the door. Amy will be outside. I need to go be the monster everyone expects me to be. Theo, please, Tessa, let me keep this part of my life separate from you. Let me protect you from at least some of the darkness. After he left, I stood at the window, looking out at the dark lake. Somewhere in the house below, Theo was making decisions about life and death. Somewhere in Chicago, people were hunting and being hunted. And I was here, in a fortress, wondering if love was enough to bridge the gap between my world and his. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He'll never be able to fully protect you. There are too many enemies, too many people who want to hurt him through you. Leave now, while you still can. This is your last warning. I deleted the message, but my hands were shaking. Amy appeared in the doorway, as if she had some sixth sense for my distress. Another message? I nodded. May I? She held out her hand and I gave her my phone. She scrolled through something, her expression darkening. These are coming from multiple numbers, but they're being routed through a VPN. Sophisticated setup. What does that mean? It means whoever is sending them has resources and technical knowledge, not just some jealous ex or random psycho. She handed the phone back. I'm going to recommend Mr. Valentini get you a new phone with enhanced security. In the meantime, don't respond to any unknown numbers. Do you think they're serious? About me being in danger? Amy's expression was frank. I think anyone associated with Theo Valentini is always in some degree of danger. But whether these threats are credible or just someone trying to scare you away, that's what we need to figure out. I spent the rest of the evening in the suite, too keyed up to sleep, too anxious to relax. Around midnight, Rosa knocked softly and entered with a tray. Theo said you probably wouldn't come down for dinner. He's still dealing with business. So I brought food up. She set the tray on the coffee table. And wine, because you look like you need it. We sat together, and I found myself pouring out the story. How Theo and I had ended up here, the threats I'd been receiving, the guilt I felt about the warehouse attack. Rosa listened without judgment. When I finished, she squeezed my hand. My brother has been preparing for this life since he was a child. He knows the risks, the costs, the consequences, and he's choosing you anyway. She met my eyes. That should tell you something about how much you mean to him. Theo doesn't make decisions lightly, especially not about who he lets into his life. But people are dying. People have always been dying in this world. That's not on you. That's on the men who choose violence, who see other human lives as acceptable losses in their games of power. She paused. My husband, Antonio, he was an accountant when we met. Completely outside this life. When he found out who my family was, he had a choice. Run away or stay and deal with the complications. He stayed. And yeah, it's been hard sometimes. Scary. But I've never regretted choosing him, and he's never regretted choosing me. How do you cope with the fear? I remember that every day with him is worth the risk. That love isn't supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be real. She smiled. And I take kickboxing classes, keep a gun in my nightstand, and make sure my security team knows I expect weekly updates on any threats. Practical measures for an impractical life. We talked for another hour, and by the time Rosa left, I felt steadier, more certain of my choice. Theo appeared around 2 a.m., looking exhausted. He slipped into the room quietly, like he didn't want to wake me, but I was still awake. How did it go? It's handled. His voice was flat, empty. Marco is dealing with his cousin. The Bratva connection has been severed, and I've quadrupled security at all our locations. He started to undress, his movements mechanical. I saw new bruises forming on his ribs, a cut on his cheekbone. What happened? Interrogation got physical. The information didn't come willingly. He met my eyes. Do you want details? Because I can give them to you, but I'm warning you, they're not pretty. No, I don't need to know. Relief flashed across his face. Good, because there are parts of my life I'd prefer to keep separate from you. Dark parts that I don't want touching you. He climbed into bed beside me, pulling me into his arms. His heart was racing, his breathing uneven. This wasn't the controlled, confident Theo from the office. This was a man carrying the weight of impossible decisions. I'm proud of you, I whispered. He went still. For what? For trying to protect me from the darkness. For caring enough to want to keep parts of your life separate. For being human underneath all the armor. His arms tightened around me. I love you, he said, the words raw. I know it's too soon. I know we've only been together for days, but I've loved you for 2 years, and I can't keep pretending I don't. I love you too. And I meant it. Despite the danger, despite the complications, despite everything. We fell asleep tangled together, two people from different worlds trying to build something that could survive in the space between. 3 days at the estate passed in a strange limbo, part vacation, part siege. Theo spent most of his time in meetings with his advisors, planning responses to the Bratva's aggression, while I tried to establish some semblance of normalcy. Rosa became my lifeline, teaching me the rhythms of this world, the unspoken rules that governed life in the Valentini family. Never ask direct questions about business, she explained over coffee on the 4th morning. If Theo wants you to know something, he'll tell you. Questions put him in the position of either lying to you or revealing things that could put you in danger. That seems like a recipe for mistrust. It's a recipe for survival. What you don't know can't be tortured out of you. She said it so casually, like torture was just another occupational hazard. Not that anyone would dare touch you now that Theo's claimed you publicly. But the principle stands. I was learning the vocabulary of this life, the euphemisms and codes, the careful language that allowed people to discuss violence without naming it directly. Handled meant killed. Relocated meant disappeared. Having a conversation meant interrogation, often brutal. On the 5th morning, Theo found me on the terrace overlooking the lake. Frost touched the grass, turning everything silver in the early light. He wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and pulled me against his chest. The situation is contained, he said quietly. Marco identified the Bratva cell responsible for the warehouse hit. We've made it clear that further aggression will be met with disproportionate response. Meaning I've shown them what happens when they target my organization. They're backing down, at least for now. His arms tightened around me. We can go back to the city today if you want. Resume normal life. Normal life, I repeated, the words feeling foreign. Is that even possible now? I don't know, but I'd like to try. He turned me in his arms, his gray eyes searching mine. I want to take you to dinner without armed guards at every table. I want to wake up next to you in my bed without planning defensive strategies. I want to give you something close to the life you deserve. What if the life I deserve includes you, guards and all? His expression softened. Then I'm the luckiest bastard alive. We returned to Chicago that afternoon. The penthouse felt different now. Not like Theo's space that I was visiting, but like our space. He'd cleared drawers for my clothes, made room in the bathroom for my things, adjusted the pantry to include foods I liked. I called your mother's hospital, he said casually that evening while we prepared dinner together, spoke with her care team about treatment options. I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. You what? I hope that's okay. I know you're private about family matters, but I wanted to understand her condition, see if there were better options available. He kept his eyes on the vegetables he was chopping. They mentioned an experimental treatment that's showing promising results, but it's not covered by insurance. I've arranged for her to be enrolled in the trial, all expenses covered. Emotion clogged my throat. Theo, that's too much. It's nothing. Less than nothing. He finally looked at me. Your mother is sick, and you've been carrying that burden alone for years. You're mine now, Tessa. That means your burdens are mine too. I went to him, wrapping my arms around him from behind, pressing my face against his back. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me, for caring about the things that matter to me. Always, he promised. That night, as we lay tangled together in his bed, he traced patterns on my bare skin. I have something to ask you. The seriousness in his tone made me nervous. What? There's an event next month. A charity gala that brings together all the major families, both legitimate business people and those of us who operate in the shadows. It's neutral ground, a chance to show unity and strength. He paused. I want you there with me. As my partner, not my secretary. Won't that be dangerous? Amy will be there, along with half my security team. The event itself is sacred ground. Violence is prohibited, and everyone respects that rule because the consequences of breaking it are severe. His finger traced my collarbone. But it would be a very public statement. Everyone in Chicago would know that you're mine, that you're under my protection. There would be no ambiguity anymore. And that's what you want? What I want is to show you off. To make it clear to every man in that room that you're taken, that you're precious to me, that anyone who even thinks about harming you will answer to me personally. He kissed me softly. But I need to know you're ready for that level of exposure. Once we do this, there's no pretending you're just my secretary. You'll be Tessa Morgan, Theo Valentini's woman. Everything that comes with that title. I thought about the threats I'd been receiving, the danger that already surrounded me, the warehouse attack that had left 2 men dead. I thought about my mother in Ohio, finally getting proper treatment. I thought about waking up next to Theo every morning, the way he looked at me like I was his entire world. I'm ready, I said. His smile was fierce, possessive. Then I'll have Rosa take you shopping. You'll need a dress that stops traffic. I want every person in that ballroom to understand exactly what I have. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Rosa became my stylist, my advisor, and my friend. We spent hours in exclusive boutiques, trying on gowns that cost more than I used to make in a year. We settled on a deep emerald dress that hugged every curve, with a slit up the thigh and a neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. Theo is going to lose his mind when he sees you in this, Rosa said with satisfaction. Every man in that room will want you, and every woman will hate you. Perfect. At work, the dynamics had shifted. People no longer whispered when I walked past. They greeted me respectfully, even deferentially. I was no longer just Theo's secretary. I was his partner, and that carried weight. But the threatening messages continued. Different numbers, different times, but always the same message. Leave him before it's too late. Amy had been investigating, but so far had found nothing concrete. Whoever is sending these knows how to cover their tracks. They're using multiple VPNs, burner phones, sophisticated routing. This isn't amateur hour. Could it be the Bratva? I asked, trying to scare me away as part of their strategy. Possible, but the language feels more personal. Like someone who actually knows you, who thinks they're helping. She frowned. We'll keep digging. In the meantime, stay vigilant. If anything feels off, you tell me immediately. The night of the gala arrived. I spent hours getting ready, hair styled in an elegant updo, makeup dramatic but sophisticated, the emerald dress fitting like it had been painted on. When I emerged from the bedroom, Theo was waiting in the living room, dressed in a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. His reaction was everything Rosa had predicted. His eyes darkened, his jaw clenched, and he crossed the room in 3 strides. "Fuck," he breathed. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." He kissed me carefully, mindful of my lipstick, his hands skimming over the dress. I'm going to have to fight off every man in that ballroom. "I only see one man," I said, adjusting his bow tie. "Good answer." He pulled back reluctantly. "Amy and Marco will be with us. Stay close to me at all times. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. And if I give you a signal—" He touched his right ear. "You go with Amy immediately. No questions asked. You're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps you alert. Alert keeps you alive." He softened his tone. "But I promise you, Tessa, I will let nothing happen to you. I'd die before I let anyone hurt you." The gala was held at the city's most prestigious hotel, in a ballroom that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, tables draped in silk, and covered with elaborate floral arrangements. Chicago's elite mingled in tuxedos and designer gowns, a glittering display of wealth and power. But beneath the elegance, I could feel the undercurrents of danger, the subtle positioning of bodyguards, the careful way people moved through the space, always aware of who was nearby, the loaded glances between rivals forced to maintain civility. Theo kept me close, his hand possessive at the small of my back. We made the rounds, greeting business associates, acknowledging other families, maintaining the careful dance of respect and implied threat that seemed to govern these interactions. "Theo Valentini," a voice called out. I turned to see a distinguished older man approaching, his silver hair swept back, his tuxedo impeccable. Behind him walked a younger man, handsome, cold-eyed, radiating danger. "Don Moretti," Theo greeted him, his voice neutral. "And Lorenzo. I wasn't aware your family would be attending." "We wouldn't miss it," the Don replied smoothly. "Especially not when we heard you'd be bringing your new companion." His eyes swept over me, assessing. I kept my expression neutral, remembering Rosa's advice. Never show fear, never show weakness. In this world, both are invitations to attack. "My fiancé," Theo corrected, his voice like steel. "Tessa Morgan." "Fiancé?" My heart jumped, but I kept my face calm. This was a performance, a power play. "Charmed," Don Moretti said, though his eyes remained cold. "Lorenzo, say hello to Miss Morgan." Lorenzo stepped forward, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or calculation. "A pleasure. Tell me, Miss Morgan, how did a woman like you end up with a man like Valentini?" "I could ask you the same question about your family," I replied, keeping my voice light but with an edge. "How does anyone end up where they are? Choice, circumstance, or fate?" Something like amusement crossed Lorenzo's face. "She has spirit. Be careful, Valentini. Spirit can be dangerous." "Or intoxicating," Theo replied, pulling me closer. "If you'll excuse us, gentlemen, my fiancé promised me a dance." He led me to the dance floor, his hand firm on my waist. As we moved to the music, he leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. "Fiancé?" I whispered. I wasn't planning to propose like this, but when that bastard looked at you like you were up for auction, the words just came out. He pulled back to look at me. "We can make it real later, with a proper proposal. Or we can keep it as a useful fiction. Your choice." "What if I want it to be real?" His eyes blazed. "Then say yes. Yes." He kissed me right there on the dance floor, in front of Chicago's elite, claiming me publicly and irrevocably. When we broke apart, I saw Rosa across the room, beaming. Saw Marco nod approvingly. Saw other faces, some pleased, some calculating, some dark with envy or malice. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and veiled threats, of champagne toasts and loaded conversations. Theo never left my side, his presence a constant shield. But as we were leaving, as we moved through the hotel lobby toward the car, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. My heart stopped. Mark. Mark, my ex-boyfriend from years ago, the one who'd left me with debt and broken promises. He was here, in Chicago, at this event, and he was staring directly at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I must have made a sound because Theo immediately tensed. What is it? Nothing. I thought I saw someone I knew. His eyes scanned the lobby, missing Mark, who'd already disappeared into the crowd. Who? No one important. Someone from my past. We made it to the car without incident, but my mind was racing. What was Mark doing here? Was he connected to these families somehow? And more importantly, was he the one sending those threatening messages? That night, lying in Theo's arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, that the careful peace we'd built was about to shatter. What are you thinking? Theo murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. That I love you, that I'm scared, that I don't know how this story ends. It ends with us together, he said with absolute certainty. Everything else is just details. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message from an unknown number. I warned you. Now it's too late. What's coming next is on you. Before I could react, the penthouse alarm began to blare. Theo was out of bed instantly, pulling on pants, grabbing the gun he kept in the nightstand. Stay here, he commanded. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Amy. Theo. He kissed me hard. I love you. Remember that, whatever happens next. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the shrieking alarm and the certainty that our borrowed time had just run out. Through the locked door, I heard shouting, gunshots, the sound of breaking glass. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking as I dialed Amy. Stay put, she answered immediately. We're handling it. What's happening? Bratva hit team. They got past the first layer of security. But Theo's got this. Just stay. The line went dead. I stood frozen in the bedroom, wearing nothing but Theo's shirt, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to do something. But I'd promised to trust him, to let him protect me. Minutes passed like hours. The sounds of violence continued, then gradually faded. Finally, silence. The door handle turned. I backed away, looking for anything I could use as a weapon. Tessa, it's me. Theo's voice, rough with exhaustion. I unlocked the door with trembling hands. He stood there, disheveled, a cut above his eye bleeding sluggishly, but alive. Whole. It's over, he said. They're gone. You're safe. I launched myself at him and he caught me, his arms like steel bands around me. I thought, when I heard the gunshots, shh, I'm fine, we're fine. He carried me back to the bed, sitting with me in his lap. They tried to breach the penthouse. They failed. It won't happen again. I'm tripling security, adding redundancies, making this place impenetrable. This is because I said yes, isn't it? Because you claimed me at the gala. This is because the Bratva saw an opportunity and took it, because they thought they could hurt me through you. His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. But they were wrong. They didn't hurt you. They just pissed me off, and tomorrow, they're going to learn exactly what that means. The cold fury in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I felt safe, protected, cherished. I saw someone tonight, I said. At the gala. My ex-boyfriend, Mark. He was there, watching me. Theo went very still. Tell me everything about this, Mark. I did. The relationship, the debt he'd left me with, the way he'd disappeared. When I finished, Theo's expression was thoughtful. Marco, he called out. His advisor appeared in the doorway. Run a full background check on Mark. He looked at me. Harris. Mark Harris. Mark Harris. I want to know where he's been, who he's working for, and why he was at the gala tonight. Theo's voice was steel. And pull phone records. I want to know if he's been contacting Tessa. Understanding dawned. You think he's the one sending the threats? I think it's too convenient that your ex appears the same night we're attacked. I don't believe in coincidences. He kissed my forehead. But we'll find out. And if he's been threatening you, if he's put you in danger. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We spent the rest of the night awake, Theo coordinating with his security team, while I tried to process everything that had happened. By dawn, the penthouse had been secured, the Bratva hit team's bodies removed, and Marco had preliminary information on Mark Harris. He's been working as a financial consultant, Marco reported. But his client list includes several Eastern European firms with suspected Bratva connections. Could be coincidence, could be something more. Bring him in, Theo ordered. I want to have a conversation with Mr. Harris. Theo, you can't just kidnap him. I'm not going to kidnap him. I'm going to invite him to a meeting. If he's smart, he'll accept. His eyes were cold. And if he's not smart, then we'll do things the hard way. 2 days later, I found myself back in Theo's office, watching through the one-way glass as Mark was escorted into the conference room. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around, taking in the understated luxury and the subtle threat of Theo's domain. Theo entered the room, and I watched Mark's face pale. Mr. Harris, thank you for accepting my invitation. Did I have a choice? Mark's voice was shaky. Everyone has choices. You've made several interesting ones recently. Working for Bratva-connected firms. Attending a gala you couldn't possibly afford. Following my fiancé. Theo's voice was pleasant, conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. I'm curious about your motivations. I don't know what you're talking about. Theo slid a folder across the table. Phone records. Text messages sent from burner phones registered to addresses near your apartment. Surveillance footage of you watching Tessa's building. Would you like me to continue? Mark's face crumbled. I was trying to protect her. She doesn't know what she's gotten into with you. I've heard things, Mr. Valentini. Terrible things. So you thought threatening her, scaring her, would help? I thought if she was scared enough, she'd leave you before you destroyed her, before you got her killed. Mark's eyes were wild. I loved her once. I know I screwed up, but I never wanted her hurt. Through the glass, I felt an unexpected pang of something. Not love, that had died years ago, but recognition that Mark, in his misguided way, had been trying to help. Theo leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Harris. You're going to stop contacting Tessa, you're going to leave Chicago, and you're going to pray I never have reason to think about you again. Because if you show up in her life one more time, if you send one more message, if you so much as speak her name, I will make you wish you'd never been born. The threat was delivered calmly, almost gently, which made it absolutely credible. I understand, Mark whispered. Good. There's a plane ticket waiting for you at O'Hare, San Francisco. I've arranged a job interview at a firm there. Take it, start over, and forget Tessa Morgan exists. Theo stood. Or don't, and deal with the consequences. Your choice. After Mark was escorted out, Theo returned to where I waited. He was telling the truth. Misguided, but not malicious. He'll leave Chicago. And if he doesn't, then I'll handle it. He pulled me into his arms. But I don't think he'll be a problem. He's scared enough to be smart. With Mark gone and the Bratva threat neutralized, life began to settle into something almost normal. Theo and I fell into rhythms. Mornings tangled together in bed, days working side by side, evenings with Rosa and her family or quiet dinners at home. He officially proposed a month later, on the terrace of the estate, with a ring that had belonged to his mother. My mother's treatment was working. Her latest scans showed improvement, and her doctors were cautiously optimistic. She'd met Theo over video call and had given her blessing with tears in her eyes. "He loves you," she'd said. "I can see it in how he looks at you, like you're his whole world." "He's dangerous, Mom. His business." "Life is dangerous, sweetheart. Love is dangerous. But it's also the only thing that makes any of it worthwhile." She'd smiled. "Be happy. You deserve to be happy." 6 months after that first explosive meeting in the conference room, I stood in front of a mirror in Rosa's guest house, wearing a wedding dress that made me look like something out of a dream. Simple, elegant, perfect. "Ready?" Rosa asked, adjusting my veil. "Terrified," I admitted. "Good. That means you understand what you're getting into." She squeezed my hand. "But I've never seen my brother happier. You've given him something to live for beyond the business, beyond the violence. You've given him hope." The ceremony was small, just family and Theo's closest associates. We married on the estate's grounds, overlooking the lake, with Rosa and Marco standing as witnesses. When Theo saw me walking toward him, his eyes shone with something that looked like wonder. "You came," he said softly as I reached him. "Did you doubt?" "Every day since I met you, I've wondered when you'd realize you could do better, when you'd wake up and see me for what I am." I took his hands, feeling the calluses, the strength, the gentleness he reserved for me alone. "I see exactly who you are, Theo Valentini, and I choose you anyway. I choose us." "Then let's make it official, Mrs. Valentini." The name sent a thrill through me. Mrs. Valentini, Theo's wife, partner to one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. After we were pronounced husband and wife, after we'd kissed to applause and toasts, Theo pulled me aside. "I have something for you." He handed me an envelope. "Open it later, when we're alone." That night, in the privacy of our bedroom at the estate, I opened the envelope. Inside was a deed to a building in downtown Chicago, and a note in Theo's elegant handwriting. "This is yours. Do with it what you want. Start a business, create a foundation, let it sit empty. But it's yours, completely, in your name alone. Because while you may be mine, I never want you to forget that you're also your own person, that you have power and agency beyond what I give you. I love you, not because you complete me, but because you challenge me to be better than the monster I was becoming. Forever yours, T." I found him on the terrace, looking out at the lake. He turned when he heard me approach, and I saw vulnerability in his expression. "It's too much," I said. "It's not enough. It will never be enough." He pulled me against him. "But it's a start. A reminder that you always have choices, even when it feels like you don't." We stood there together, husband and wife, two people from different worlds who'd somehow found each other. The future was uncertain. His business would always carry danger, and there would always be enemies waiting for opportunities. But we were facing it together, bound by love and choice, and the promise to protect each other through whatever came next. "No regrets?" Theo asked. I thought about the journey that had brought us here, the accidental pregnancy scare that had never happened, the 2 years of silent longing, the explosive revelation, the danger and violence and impossible choices. "Only one," I said. His body tensed. What? That I wasted 2 years being invisible when I could have been yours all along. His smile was fierce, possessive, full of love. Then let's make up for lost time, Mrs. Valentini. And we did. For the rest of our lives we did.